Going to get into Dr. Felix Cabrera now, the Chief Medical Officer for the Department of Public Health and Social Services in the KUAM News Zoom room. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning, Chris. Good morning, Bree. Good morning, Jason, everyone.
Good morning. I don't even know where to start.
I do.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll just go ahead and start, Doc, with the, because I know you had some things to say about the vaccination. It's now FDA approved, right?
Pfizer.
Pfizer is FDA approved. So are you guys anticipating that you're going to get an extra push of people who want to get the shot?
Well, we hope so, honestly. The formality of Pfizer becoming fully FDA approved was just a matter of time. And it was just a time where the data had some time to breathe, basically, and be able to be processed over the months since they had an emergency use authorization. So that time has come, and the FDA, was finally able to make that judgment for approval. It's only a matter of time before Moderna joins that class as well, and very likely Johnson & Johnson as well.
Well, we have been seeing the long lines actually over at the Micronesia malls. Kind of like what you guys are seeing as well. More and more people are, and this is even prior to the FDA giving full approval of the Pfizer vaccine.
Yeah, and that's been really encouraging overall. What we've seen is that it's definitely our weekly and daily average has gone up over the past 2 weeks or so. And so right now we're doing about 660 shots per day on average just this past week, and then almost 250 people becoming fully vaccinated every day just this past week. And so that's very encouraging overall, and I think that's that people are finally doing this because, one, they see what's going on. They see the CAR score going up. They see the hospitalizations going up, and they really want to protect themselves and their family. And that's the most important way to that you can do that. And so I'm glad that that's finally coming through, and that it's never too late to get your vaccine and right now. And so please, everyone who is not vaccinated or has not completed their vaccine series, now is no better time.
Mm-hmm. Just so I'm kind of clear on it, the numbers, when you say that the vaccination numbers are going up, is that for first time people going in to get their COVID shot, or is it people trying to complete their series?
It's both. And there are a lot of first timers. And so that's what's really encouraging is that, and it could be from a number of factors, right? That they either, one, they were waiting for more reason to go, so to speak. And then of course the full FDA approval. But the rise up has been way before this approval, of course, and the approval I think is only going to cause it to go up. But yeah, so you're seeing definitely both groups rise up. What I want to take special time to really acknowledge are the teenagers in particular, 12 to 19. Well, 12 is not teenager, I guess, but basically the 12 to 19-year-olds, they're the ones that are really coming out. And so, I want to really thank them and acknowledge them because they are the ones that are making up in terms of the absolute numbers, the biggest group that are getting vaccinated, almost threefold compared to the other groups like 20s, 30s, and 40s.
Doc, can you kind of go into, just because we've been having some questions about how these latest restrictions and orders stem the spread of the virus? Because it kind of seems like, and this is oversimplification, that we're accepting that we're going to get these high number of positives, and the measures we're putting in place are targeting the unvaccinated, right? And so we're trying to vaccinate everyone to stave off those hospitalizations, but what about these positive cases that turn into hospitalizations? So if you could explain how these new restrictions and orders address the spread of the virus and why it is that we get these high numbers and people are kind of used to, right, in their mind, oh, we had these numbers, why aren't we doing things with occupancy? Because it kind of seems like without addressing the occupancy or the gathering, the whole vaxxed, unvaxxed argument I'm not saying it's moot, but we know that vax get it, unvax get it, they spread it. So I guess if you could just explain to people how this targets the rising number of cases.
Sure. So first things first is that what what we're dealing with this August of 2021 is very, very, very different than August of 2020. And it seemed like in August of 2020, it was pretty straightforward. Just shut everything down, quarantine everybody, that come on the island. It was that straightforward. And we saw, the expected result from that, which was a downturn in terms of hospitalizations and cases. That was temporary, but then there was another spike that happened again in September, October. But right now, it's more sophisticated for sure, because the virus has become more sophisticated, and it has we're dealing with something completely different. So we think about going back to basics. What are the areas of compromise? Areas of compromise are when you don't wear a mask in situations that create that. And so we know what those are, and particularly when you're eating and drinking. And also, what are situations where you're breathing heavy? Basically, what are situations where you're swapping air with somebody else? And in those situations, how do we mitigate it? And so one, vaccine, of course, is the way out of all of this. Unfortunately, the Delta variant has pushed us that we have to have way more people vaccinated in order to really control the spread. It's never been an absolute number in terms of what herd immunity was, but what's one thing for sure about the Delta variant is that it's pushed that number up higher than the original COVID variant. So what we're basically what we're trying to do is a targeted approach, and it's difficult and it causes some confusion, that's for sure. Yeah. It causes a lot of debate, that's for sure. But at this point, there's still constant reevaluation, as you can see. And I think it's been clear, the governor, she's made her decisions, and then she listens also, from a lot of the feedback, tried to get as much information before making her decision, has listened to the process after, and has made adjustments, and she's still doing that, as well. And this is we clearly have to keep, move forward, pivot. And it's gonna take that as we try and fight this and as we learn. So, Chris, what you were mentioning specifically about the gatherings, I think that's a very good point. Is that what are we gonna do to curb that? Because as we know, even though you're vaccinated, there's still a chance that you may be infected. We never said it was 100%. Your chance is so much lower than somebody who is unvaccinated. So that's why, obviously we keep, pushing and encouraging people to get vaccinated to reduce that chance. But if you have a group of 100 vaccinated persons, there's still a chance that somebody there is going to have the virus. But again, just also still recognizing that the likelihood of spreading it to somebody else who is also vaccinated is also less. Whereas opposed to if you have just unvaccinated people that are gathering together, that's your clear recipe for spread.
So with Chima, with the clusters, it looks like they're coming from the big social gatherings and the bars, from what he's saying. So why didn't any of the restrictions kind of like laser focus in on those things?
I can't. I really don't. I can't answer that specifically. There have been a variety of recommendations. Clearly the restaurant and bars, I think, were on the top of the list, because again, that's where the mask usage are the most compromised. But there's a variety of different ways that this could have been done, and in the end, we're at a point here right now where I think that the refinement and adjustment to the original executive orders, I think it's very fair. We believe that people do have a choice, and that you do have a choice to be vaccinated, and if you're not going to be vaccinated, and for whatever reason, that you have an alternative, which is weekly testing. And in either of those situations, we're going to have better results than we have right now. However, I'm a firm believer that my rights end where your rights begin. So if I'm trying to say that I have a right to certain things, it ends where I'm infringing on your rights. And so I also have a right to not be exposed to unvaccinated persons who choose to be unvaccinated for reasons that are not founded. And so that's a concern. If I get infected and I pass it on to somebody else, that's a concern. And so there are rights that have to be equally weighed in those situations. But that's my belief. There is a growing number of areas, of cities, of businesses that are embracing this vaccine mandate. And this is not new. We know this, from other vaccines throughout history, where they're required to go to school to be able to work certain jobs, and they've proven effective. And just because something like smallpox or polio or what have you is not around or so common, we still get polio vaccines. These are still very important, and so I think that's going to be part of our norm.
Yeah.
And part of the vaccine repertoire.
I wanted to ask, because we had played a news story and we interviewed, was it Nurse Margarita Gay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we interviewed her from the Teas and Testing site, and she was talking about, and I'm sure you know the school students testing positive, right? So she was saying that there were a lot of kids who were showing up to get tested who were symptomatic. Right, so when we look at these school protocols, obviously the parent backlash right now, it's just a tidal wave of fear, anxiety, confusion. I mean, rightfully so. People love their kids, but do we need to do anything else at the school level from a public health standpoint? Because I know that the superintendent says that it's not being transmitted in the schools, but the point I think a lot of people are trying to make is that it is so widespread in the community. So widespread that of course it's going to be popping up in the school. So that being said, do we need to revisit anything from a public health standpoint with the school protocols?
Well, what I think is important is for the schools in particular, and Superintendent John Fernandez has really embraced this understanding, is that there's really three main things, right? It's mask wearing, it's ventilation or air, proper air filtration or exchange. And then third was vaccination around for everyone that these kids are around. And so it's those three key principles, and they've adopted that. And so the question is now, for these children, they need to be surrounded by as many vaccinated people, basically as possible. All the people. That's the best way to protect them. 100%. The fact that they're symptomatic and that they're showing up and testing positive, that is a concern. What we do know is that in certain areas, like in Texas or in Houston, their hospitalization for pediatric COVID patients are like up 300 to 500%. That's really concerning. As far as I know, or I'm aware of, that there is no pediatric patient that's hospitalized right now in Guam. And there's only been one this year, overall. And so, that is something that we have to watch closely. But if we're talking about closing schools or having a period of pause, then it's not just going to be the schools; it's going to be the whole island. We're talking about P-Core 1 again. And are we at that point right now? That's something that's still really being looked at very, very closely. Where we flatten the curve, meaning that yes, the hospitalizations are high, but it hasn't been at a high spike that has been completely unmanageable. So it's still very, very tough because there's still a lot of non-COVID patients in the hospital. So it's that balance that we're trying to seek in. But right now, the census is too high. It's we have about 29 patients this morning admitted to between the three hospitals in Guam with COVID.
Bree?
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on the refined executive order, because there were some questions regarding the self-attestation part. Because I say, well, I am vaccinated, but I could go in and say, yeah, I'm vaccinated, and just fill out the form and check it. But
yeah.
how
honor
do you know?
system.
Yeah,
Really, this is
is
life or death.
So, two things on that in my thoughts, right? Is so that the way I interpret it is that one is that the business has a responsibility of ensuring that whoever's signing in is truly that person. And that's usually checking an ID, and just like how you would check an ID if somebody was trying to order a drink and you're trying to verify if they're over 21. Now, once that is in place, there is still a potential for an audit, right? And so if public health, comes in and looks at that list and wants to audit the people that are in there, and if they see somebody that's there and they can't verify their vaccination, then they've falsely attested to their vaccination status, and they will be subject to fines, right, and penalties that was stated within the executive order as well. So those are things that there are consequences that exist, and if a business doesn't adhere to having a proper list, then that's where they're liable. I would think. But also there still is a liability on the personal point if you falsely attest that you're vaccinated, and so I think that's still something that has integrity in terms of will it make an impact? I still think it will.
Is public health going to be providing these forms for these self-attestation? John Jr. was on yesterday. He said public health is going to give these private businesses these forms for the self-attestation requirement.
I'm sorry. What was the question?
Is public health when is public health going to make these self-attestation forms available
to
these
forms
businesses?
Themselves.
Yeah.
I'll have to get back to you on that. I'm not sure about what the specifics are. With that overall.
Do you know because the first executive order said that unvaccinated people were not allowed to congregate or gather with anyone outside their household? Did the refined executive order amend that in any way?
Not to my knowledge, right? In that really, if you're unvaccinated, you still pose a risk, and so that's one of the key parts here is that it's guys, there are people that are extremely sick here on this island. We have to do something, and if you're not vaccinated, you cannot go out and be a risk to other people. And so like we've said before, it's essentially PCOR 1 for the unvaccinated. And that may sound harsh, that may sound unfair in other ways, but hey, that's the facts. You are the ones that are much higher risk of continuing the spread. We had 126 cases yesterday, in one day, and that's really alarming. And the test positivity rate for just that one day was 10%, around 10%. That's really alarming. And so, so because of that's extremely important that we really understand this and that we take this extremely seriously. And if the other side of this is that it's PCOR 1 for everybody else, for everyone. Really, that's the other alternative here. So we have to embrace what we can here. By the way, I'm getting word that that there is one pediatric patient that's admitted right now in Guam's hospital.
Right. Yeah, Lillian was on, and she was talking about that a couple days ago. I do have a question here. Those who aren't able to get the COVID vaccine for medical or religious reasons with a valid certifications, are they exempted from the latest EOs? Because they called the 311 the RAC, and they were told they are not exempted, even with the valid doctor's certification. Is that correct?
So you're exempted from having to take the vaccine just the same way as somebody who chooses not to have it. They're not being forced to get it. But the virus doesn't care about your exemptions. So there still needs to be a way to mitigate your risk, and that's the weekly testing. So this is specifically for those who their vaccination status is linked to their employment. And so if you're not vaccinated for whatever reason you have, the weekly testing is still a critical part of that, and so you still should be subject to that.
Doc, what about the weekly testing? Right, we all know that. I mean, a weekly test, like how valid is that? Because you could present with a weekly test and then get the virus the day after.
True. And so there's nothing that says that it's 100%. Now, what we're looking at also is making it a much easier form of the test, right? So when it comes to screening tests on a weekly basis, what has been shown with a lot of data that even just the regular antigen testing, the one that's only the front part of your nose, so it's not a deep, swab, and that you get the results almost immediately, like with the Bionex now, that on a weekly basis does show to be extremely effective in reducing transmissions. For example, schools last year, universities in particular, who required their students to have this weekly testing with just the antigen testing, they had nearly 0% of their student body, becoming infected overall. And it's a small percentage that were caught there, and they were able to isolate them quickly, and so there was no major spread. As compared to other universities that didn't do that, you were looking at around 15% or so of the student body becoming infected with COVID within a comparable time period. So that's something that's shown to be very effective. It's not 100%, but it's something, and it's a good alternative for those people who can't be vaccinated for whatever reason.
Is public health going to open up more testing sites? Because we always hear about the traffic, the long wait over in Teaden, and now with the latest refined executive order giving the weekly testing option, and same for GovGuam, are we going to open up more?
Yeah, we have to. But I do want to recognize that prior to this spike that we've had with this wave, so like around late July, we were averaging about 300 tests per day on a 7-day average, a weekly basis. But what we're doing now, we're doing way over 900 tests per day. So we've tripled that amount of testing on Guam right now. And that's not just public health, that's everything, including civilian and Department of Defense. And so overall, there's been triple the amount of testing, and it's still not enough. And so we still have to find ways to be able to do this more efficiently. And also, the one of the key parts here is that we still need to find a way to have the results part of it become more streamlined and more effective, because the people who are positive, we can always do better in informing them more early, but also the ones who are negative, it's very important to ensure that they get the results in a timely fashion as well. So all of these are very much projects that we're trying to work on to improve our capacity.
Doc,
I'm sorry. So what is the plan? Are we going to open up more testing sites?
And so once those plans are actually ironed out, then that's when, of course, it will be announced with the JIC report. So I don't have anything specific right now, just knowing that we do have to do more, and that we are working on it, and it's very active planning process right now.
Doc, what about, if you just have one shot and you self-attest, you can go around and do everything. What about those people who are incoming travelers? If they just have the one shot, are they able to walk just like the fully vaccinated? And also, on that note, are we maybe considering starting up testing at the airport like CNMI?
So, okay, a lot of questions in that one.
I know.
That one statement, but first of all, I need to acknowledge that right now, of the adult population, 87.9% of the adult population, 18 and over, have had at least one shot here on Guam. So that's an overwhelming majority, right? So those who have not had a shot, you're a small minority, in this, and basically you're about 12% of the population. And so those who are international and have had just one shot of a WHO vaccine that is on their emergency use list, they are recognized as also having been vaccinated. So that still applies as well. Now, in terms of testing at the airport, that's something that in terms of our whole quarantine process and our whole entry process, we're still continuing to look at, because right now, as you know, we because we felt that we earned it at a certain point, that having just either being vaccinated or having a PCR test that allow you to enter Guam without having to go through the quarantine facility. Now, do we need to refine that as well? That's a question that's very much in play right now. And in terms of what we need to do, testing at the airport is a major endeavor. And I've been to Saipan already, twice in the past 3 months or so. And the second time I did do the testing at the airport. It's logistically it is a lot, and there are a lot of flights that enter Guam compared to what Saipan receives in terms of volume. So all that has to be taken into consideration.
I'm sorry, but I just got to go back to the testing sites. It just seems like we've been in the surge for 4 weeks. Why is it taking so long to open up more testing sites?
Let me recognize that we have opened up more testing. We're doing 3 times more testing than we did just only a few weeks ago. Again, going up from 300 some to 900 some on a daily basis. Yet we're still trying, and so we've scaled up in a tremendous way. Yet we are very much recognizing because of the need that we need to do more. And so I'm as the chief medical officer, it's my job to understand these things. It's not my job to be part of the individual planning, and that's where Chima, of course, comes into play, and that's more his areas of expertise. I'm not going to try and speak for him, but it is something that I'm recognizing, as long as along with both you, Chris and Bree, that you're recognizing that we need to do more.
Let's go to the phones, Doc. If you could take a call before we go. We have a lady on the line. She's got a pretty good question. Ma'am, good morning. Thanks for joining us on the link.
Hi, good morning. My question is about you mentioned that majority of the island has been vaccinated. However, only 12% is unvaccinated, but it seems like it's spreading like wildfire. I just worry that it's being put out there that it's almost like the people that are vaccinated can't spread it. I mean, when you're saying we could stop the spread, people need to get vaccinated. Okay, I get it, but maybe we still need to mask up. Even if you're vaccinated, sanitize often and all that. My family's mixed. I have kids that are not able to take it. I'm extra cautious with them. They constantly sanitize. I have everything in my bag, you name it, Lysol sanitizer, everything to make sure that they're properly, they have everything that they need to stay clean and stay away from the virus. And then, of course, we have some that are vaccinated in my family and some that are not. But I mean, that's a small percentage of the island, only 12%, and yet it seems like it's blowing up. So, can you speak on that a little bit?
Yes, I want. Thank you for that. What I want to be clear is that it's 12% of the adult population, so 18 and over. So actually, there's still 60,000 unvaccinated persons on Guam, and that's when you include the 12 and under. So there's still a tremendous amount of people who are unvaccinated, but still also recognizing that those who are vaccinated, there's even though the odds of you getting infected are extremely lower than an unvaccinated, that there is still the possibility. And so that's why that's why the mask mandate still exists, for everyone, and that has not changed. And so as compared to the challenges that other states have right now without having that mask mandate, so that's why it's still very much important. We haven't had triple digit new cases in one day since about November of last year. And that's when we had the cases with the construction companies and Department of Correction. And so understanding where we are right now, but also understanding that the risk of hospitalization is much lower amongst these new cases that are being identified. So we're identifying much more mild to moderate cases, or even asymptomatic cases. And the odds of them progressing to hospitalization is extremely lower compared to obviously last year when there were no vaccinations. So yes, we are seeing a a lot more cases. And yes, we are seeing more hospitalization, but it's the amount of cases and volume of cases is not translating to the same volume that we've seen last year. And that's a very important point to make. And that's where the vaccines are playing a role.
Ma'am, did that satisfy you, or do you still think that we should do more targeted things to avoid transmission of the virus?
I think we should, and I mean, I don't know. It's a tough decision, I guess, but it really does feel kind of it's kind of one-sided, you know. And I'm mixed. I mean, we have some of my kids can't get it, obviously, but part of us are vaccinated. But at the same time, I'm just like kind of standing in the middle here, like, okay, we're able to do this, but then can't do this, and I just feel like everybody should have the same. I mean, if you're going to lock it down and people can't, then everybody shouldn't be able to, because vaccinated or not, you could still spread it. I understand that, yes, their symptoms might not be as, you know, as hard, as the way it used to be, where there's going to be more hospitalization, but at the same time, they could still spread it. And like you said, to the people that are unvaccinated and can't get it. So I don't know. My feeling on this is just we should, if it's going to be that way, it should be that way across the board.
I kind of agree with you, ma'am. In some ways, when I look at it, it's like we're jumping over the cases and focusing on the hospitalizations, but the cases turn into the hospitalizations. So I don't know. I feel like we need to go back to basics and stop the new cases, using the measures that vaccine or not, using the measures that we know worked during the first lockdown. I'm not saying lock it down. I'm saying like social gatherings, let's drop it down. Let's do occupancy or something. I mean, because obviously focusing on this unvax, I mean, I get
and
the
apply
end
it
game.
To everybody.
I get the end game of it. But after we reach 100%, then what? Do we restart because we all got to go get booster shots? So I don't know. It's oh, you're the doctor though, Doc.
No, all your points are very well taken. And so, you know, it's not just, you know, this is not just my opinion. Obviously, you know, it's a collection of opinions from a lot of people who are, you know, who are smarter than me and have a lot more information than me as well, and want to be able to get this right. But again, what the points you are making, you know, that may be very well what ends up happening here. And you know, it's I don't envy the governor's position in having to make these decisions, but everything you're saying are very valid points, and I will admit that.
Thank you, Doc. Good, ma'am. Thank you so much for your call.
Guys.
Right on.
Thank you all.
Okay.
All right, have a great
We'll
day.
see you. God bless you. Wash your hands.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doc.
Okay.
Okay. We'll
Thanks,
see you.
Doc. Was there anything else?
Oh, is there anything else?
Yeah.
Yes. Good.
No, that's good. I have a meeting I'm late for as well. So,
okay, good.
So thank you again.
Yes, that.
and so again, thank you guys for making your points are very well taken, and they are being considered seriously.
Thank you, Doc.
Thanks, Doc.
Thank you very much.
Stay safe.
7:55. Let's go ahead and jump over to Speaker Therese Terlahi, the health chair of the Guam legislature. Good morning, Madam Speaker.